Happy Just G Tuesday, and welcome back to part 2 of the interview with Heath for Castaway Q&A. I am so excited to show you this Q&A so you guys can learn more about what it's like to live on Castaway as an islander. I literally don't think that there's anything else on the internet where people can learn about Castaway in this capacity. There are videos on Disney Cruise Line careers page that show you kind of what it's like to live on Castaway, but this is a really candid interview. Heath is being super honest, and I am just so thankful that we were so lucky to get this interview. So I hope you guys enjoy part 2. If you guys aren't following Heath on Instagram, I'm gonna leave his Instagram down below so you can follow him. He posted a ton of content when he lived on Castaway, so it's just really fun to see like the behind the scenes of it all. So go ahead and follow him, and make sure you follow me as well at GiannaAlexis8. Don't forget. But I hope you guys love this interview. Enjoy.
Have you been through a hurricane on the island, and what was that like?
I have not, thankfully, but I do know plenty of people that are there that have, and I can tell you it's not fun. When Dorian happened, there was a lot of stuff in the press, and there was a lot of misinformation out there and stuff. So I was kind of watching that, getting ready to go, and that was only a few weeks before I was supposed to start this last contract. So I was kind of watching that thinking like, oh man, if this gets bad, then I might not have anywhere to go to. So I was a little bit worried, and I had friends there, and they didn't bring everyone off the island. Basically what has to happen is we have to pick up every single umbrella, chair, and lounger off the beach and move it onto the airstrip. And I think there's something like 4,000 of them on the island total. So every single one of those, and that's the lifeguard's job because we're in charge of the beach areas. Every single one of those umbrellas has to get taken out, put on a truck, and then moved to the airstrip, taken off. And then as soon as it's over, everything needs to get taken back. So it's really not fun being there for a hurricane from what I've heard. And they didn't have any communication. They didn't have any Wi-Fi, no cell service for a few days at least. So it's kind of not a fun situation. I saw like a lot of rumors online that there's like ride out crews that get paid extra to like go to the island, and that's just like not true. They just keep everyone that was working there. Either they evacuate them onto a ship or they keep them there.
Do you remember our first week on the ship, like when we were still in training? There was like a hurricane that week. It was like not a huge deal, but do you remember we were in crew bar and like the water was like literally like coming up to
I do remember that. It was, I think it was just, I don't know if it was a tropical storm or just like
it might have been.
It might have, but it was like definitely not normal. And that was like the rockiest, I do remember that. It was like the rockiest I've ever been on a ship. Like it was, everything was just moving.
I know, it was crazy. But yeah, you were just reminding me because like same thing in like the boutique, we would have to like take down all the mannequins and like strap them to the ground. The next question is, are there cast activities on the island?
There is. We don't have a CAM, like a crew activities manager like they do on the ship. So HR is kind of our designated CAM, and they'll do, you know, like movie nights. We do bingo is usually really popular.
Fun.
I hosted a trivia night when I was there. We've played Capture the Flag, things like that. It's not as frequent as on the ship. It's not like every week there's something going on, but they do try to kind of mix it up. And then also while you're there, you have kind of access to everything when there's no guests. So after work on a pre-call or on a day off, you kind of get time to hang out with people you want to hang out with, kind of make your own fun. You know, there's plenty of places to explore, and you can go out in the water, you can go out on boats and stuff. So in your free time, there's always something to do.
Are you allowed like full access to the island? Can you go wherever you want to go?
Pretty much, yeah. Like if you're going to go on what we call the wild side, which is like past Serenity Bay onto the other side of the island, usually you just have to bring a radio with you and just tell your manager where you're going, just so they know. We've paddleboarded all the way around the island. We've gone into some of the mangrove past Serenity Bay. There's another island that's uninhabited that's pretty close that we've paddled over to and stuff like that. So
really, that sounds scary.
Kind of, especially on days off, you kind of get free reign to kind of go as you please. We take some of the smaller boats and go out fishing and diving and stuff like that. So
yeah, that was another one of the questions was like, are you guys allowed to have like access to all of the things? Like you can use all the boats and all of the bikes and all of the stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, you just have to ask for permission, make sure somebody else doesn't need it to do, if anyone's working, make sure they have all the equipment they need to work. But pretty much you just ask. And we went tubing behind the jet skis and wakeboarding a lot, especially when the quarantine started in the evenings after work. We still had 2.5 hours of daylight, so we would bring a couple jet skis down to Boat Beach, just kind of have fun on the boats.
So I know you've answered, like, this question is how much free time do you have on the island? And I know you've answered, like, at night, but you guys get days off too, right?
Yeah, which is, again, another thing that's different than the ships. And that's because we technically work a 75-hour week, which goes over the working allotment hours or something. I don't know exactly how it works, but because our days are so long, and you're basically not off at it, like off any point during the day when there's a ship in our department, because if there's an emergency on the beach, if you're on break, but you're expected to respond. So for that reason, we're not like off where you can have headphones in, you have to keep your radio with you, that kind of that thing. And it's happened to me before where I'm in my room on my break and I hear on the radio that there's an emergency and I'll have to go. So I'm kind of losing that break time. And then basically from that response, I have to go directly to my next stand, my next lifeguarding position. So for that reason, our days are very long and we go over the maximum amount of hours. So that's why we get the 7th day off in the week. And so that's nice, because your body does kind of need it to recover. And in the winter, you're not getting a ton of free time, because once the ship leaves, we're finishing work and everything, and then it's basically getting dark. You're free until the next morning, but it's going to be dark, so you're not going to be able to like go out and do water sports or anything like that. You can go on a run, stuff like that, go to the gym, but hang out with your friends, whatever. But it's not a ton of time with daylight. And then on pre-calls, you're working again pretty much all day, 7 to 5 usually. So other than the day off, you're not getting a ton of free time. In the summer, it's a bit more because there's less ships, there's more pre-call days, the days are super long, it doesn't get dark till 9 o'clock. So depends on the season, depends on how busy we are. But when I was there both times in the winter, other than your day off, you're not getting a ton of time to kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah. Was that tough on you and like the winter to have not that much time off? Cause like, obviously, I left early because I was like, I can't do it. Can't roll with it. So I was wondering how like you felt about that.
I was fine. Like my first contract when we were like the same one we were on, this time right before the whole quarantine thing started, I was like 6 weeks out from when I was supposed to go home, and I was on a 6-month contract. So I was kind of getting to the point where I was like getting annoyed and just wanted to go home. It was just like the same old. And then the whole quarantine thing happened. And so that was kind of a nice break, but still I was like, I'd kind of already done all the things I wanted to do. And now we had more free time, but I was like just kind of ready to go home. 5 months, kind of in that bubble. It just kind of gets old, as hard as it is to like believe, when you're there and you're working constantly. The weather's nice, but there's like certain things you miss about home. And then I got sent home because of the COVID-19. They basically decided anyone that we can send home, we're going to send home. So they were able to get me and a few other guys flights from Marsh Harbor, the neighboring island. We didn't have to go on the ship, which was sterile at that point. And then they flew us home. So that was really difficult for a lot of other people, because like it was easy to get me home back to the United States, but there was a lot of people from all over the world that they weren't able to get flights. So I was kind of lucky. And then I got home and I was super relieved to be home. And then I was here for a couple of weeks, and then I was like, well, the island
bored again.
Nice now. Yeah, exactly. So I go back. But
yeah, right. So there are people on the island right now, and are they like essentially stuck there, like kind of like how cruise line is right now?
Exactly. Yeah. So there's people still working, and they've cut back their hours even more. So I think they're working less than 50 hours a week, which is still a lot in kind of the normal world.
To be doing
but for
nothing,
us, that's crazy. Anyone that's finishing their contracts or has like their contracts over, they're not paying them because obviously they're finished their contract, but they're feeding them and they get to stay in their housing. So like they're just kind of there.
Yeah.
So it would be fun, but again, after a while, you're kind of in that bubble and not really the real world. So there's people with families and stuff. They just want to go home to their family. So it is kind of a tough situation. As fun as it does sound, they still kind of miss the real world, because keep in mind, they've probably been there for at least 4 months, 5 months, and now they could be stuck there up to 7 months. We just don't know when there's going to be an opportunity for them to get back to their home countries, because a lot of them have closed their borders and they can't even get back in if they wanted to.
Such a crazy situation. I've been talking to a lot of my friends on the ships, and it's crazy. I can't imagine. I would be like dying to get off. Question number 10 is, what is the most annoying aspect of living on Castaway?
That is tough. I would say at first it was waking up at like 5:30 like almost every day. Gets really, really old. Rude guests, like,
yeah, of course.
I just like can't, like, I don't know, like there's so many, I have so many stories about super cool guests that are so fun and like are just great and then like you want to just give them everything, but then like you'll go from that and then just have the worst person, and you're just like kind of standing there like I don't get paid enough to like deal with this.
To do this.
Like as bad as that sounds, it's just like I'm just standing there like I don't know what, I wouldn't say rude, I would just say like adults acting like children really gets old, especially when you're like, I've been working all day to make this place like great. For me, like after especially this contract, I was kind of used to everything. I just like stopped caring. Like,
well, it's interesting too, because like for me, I was a guest before I was a crew member, and Castaway is it's like the Holy Land. That's like the day everybody goes on the ship, like even especially the Dream. People are only sailing on the Dream to go to Castaway. Nobody wants to go to Nassau. So it's like interesting that people would be, you know, mad.
I totally understand, like especially when you come on the Dream and that's like your day and there's like something about it that isn't quite like what you expected, but it's just like what we have. It's just like at a certain point you gotta kind of just be like, I'm in a beautiful place, the weather's nice. It's like, okay, like how much do you need? I don't know. Like I would say the most annoying thing would be the wake up calls, and then like being tired and having to deal with angry guests is like not my favorite thing to do.
For us too, when we first got on the ship for our first contract, it was like really a crazy experience right away, because you don't really know what you're getting into all that much. And then those 3 days on shoreside, we were like, that day we went to the ship, we woke up at what, like 4 o'clock in the morning or something crazy. And those 3 days after, it's like you're training all day long, and so you get thrown into it like super quick, and right away you're like, this is some serious stuff going on, you know?
It was much easier this time because I had to do everything all over again.
Even like traditions and all that?
I had to do traditions. I had to do all the HR trainings, all the safety trainings, everything on the ship. And by the end of those 2 weeks on the Dream, I was so miserable.
Did you have to go on the Dream again?
Yeah, for like 12 days. I got on and like just expected them to be like, okay, you're gonna do this, this, and this. We're gonna like get you off in 3 days. And they're like, you're getting off. Like they gave me the day, and it was like 12 days from then. I was like,
no, that's heartbreaking.
Everything we did, every classroom thing we did, every safety training, even though my safety certificates were still valid because they're good for 5 years, I did everything.
Yeah, Disney's very thorough. But I remember being in those classes and being like I couldn't
and I was like kind of in the back. I was just like in the back, and I like knew everything from like I remembered everything from last time, so I was just like shouting out the answers. Like, you know, the officers come in and are like doing all the safety stuff, and I'm just like, they're like, okay, anyone else that's not been here before, if you answer the question. I was just like that guy, and everyone thought I was like super like grumpy just because I just like didn't want to be an HR training. I just wanted to go to the island. Like I knew what to do. You know, like I just wanted to go back to the island, see all my friends that were on the island. Like we'd go to Castaway and I would just be in HR training all day.
Yeah, that's terrible. Oh my gosh. I would hate that. Yeah, I mean, even the first time around it was rough. I can't imagine I couldn't be able to do it a second
time. I was like just sitting there a couple of times like, what am I doing? Like, why did I do this?
Why did I do this to myself? Is it super dark at night, and are there scary bugs? This is like a question I also got a lot.
It is super dark. Actually, nighttime is really cool. So it gets very dark because there's only a few lights in the compound, and if you go down to like Serenity, you can see so many, like you can see the whole Milky Way basically. So many stars on a clear night. Oh. It's really cool. It's like something that we're the only ones that would get to experience that, because like on the ship you'd think you'd be able to look up and see stars, and it's just because there's so much light coming off the ship you can't see anything. But on the island, it's really, really cool. When you first get there, there's bugs like mosquitoes and like sandflies that bite a lot, especially at nighttime. After like a month, they kind of like stop bothering you. When you're there and you're new and you're like fresh blood, I would get like eaten alive both times I went. But then after a certain amount of time, they just stop irritating you. So it's annoying at first, but it's fine. There's a group of us that had hammocks. We brought our own hammocks and we'd set them up on palm trees outside of Conked Out Bar, and we like sleep out there before a day off. So that was always fun. We'd go bring some like lights and hang them up at Conked Out Bar and just kind of like chill there before our day off, and then sleep in hammocks right there, which is cool.
That sounds so fun. I've seen pictures too, obviously, and like it just looks it looks so good. Also, I don't know if this is like a rumor or why I think this, but does the ship supply you guys with power when it's there?
No. So they're installing a massive solar farm. Like I'm talking huge.
That's
we used to get our power from diesel generators, and we still will get a small portion, But obviously they were like, we get plenty of sunshine. It's not very economical or environmentally friendly. They're installing and they're almost done. They were almost done with it right before the whole coronavirus thing. So I don't know what the status of it is now, but they are switching pretty much 80% to solar, which is cool.
That's so cool.
The only things we get from the ship is food and supplies, but no power.
Oh yeah, that is the next one. It's where do you shop for basics? And I know you said you have a store there, but is there enough for you to have everything that you need there?
Nobody really buys there. You can buy it there, but it's expensive because the stuff that they bring into that shop has to get taxed, Bohemian tax. So it's more expensive. What we usually do is when you go on ship rotation, which is once a month, you get the Port Canaveral day, you have a late start. Like the Island Guards always have a late start. So we always go to Walmart and then just get whatever we need for the month. And, you know, if you have a friend that's going and you need something, then you can tell them to get it for you. There's always people going on rotation, but it's not like you can just go down to the cruise store and buy, you know, everything you need every night. It's only open 3 nights a week for like 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's like basically like a closet that has beer, wine, cigarettes, a couple of snacks, but they're usually like always very overpriced. And then like a few basics, which again is like overpriced. You can also, this year, this was new for this year since the hurricane, they've let us go onto the Dream and the Fantasy when it's docked. Between certain times when you're on your break, you can go up to the ship and use the cruise store on the ship. So that's I think where most people would get like their beer and wine and stuff would get it from the ship because that wasn't taxed, Bohemian tax. So that's kind of a system they had in place this year, which was where most people I would say got like drinks and snacks and stuff. But for, you know, like toothpaste and deodorant, stuff like that, you would just go to Walmart on your ship rotation.
Talking about the ship rotation a little bit more, how many do you have to do those once a month, and then they're for how long? Is it for one cruise?
It's one cruise, so it depends on what ship you go on. The Dream is going to be 3 or 4 days. The Fantasy is going to be for a week, and you do it once every month basically. So you get a stamp in your passport when you get off that says it's valid for 30 days. So you have to go back on one of the ships, go out of the Bahamas back to the U.S. You clear immigration every time you're on ship rotation in Port Canaveral. So remember, like our first week when we had to do immigration, you have to do that every single time you go on, which is again kind of annoying. It's like 5 a.m. you have to be in the Walt Disney Theater, I think.
For ship rotation as well, do you have like a preference between the Dream and the Fantasy?
It kind of depends. I did 2 on the Fantasy with one of my friends on the island that I was good friends with. And so we had a really good time on the Fantasy. If I wasn't going with somebody that I was really good friends with, I would want the Dream just because you kind of want to get it over with.
So you're not like a big fan. You're not like waiting for your ship rotation and.
Not really. I mean, when I was with him, we did like New Year's on the Fantasy, which was great. We had a blast. Yeah. Like those 2 weeks on the Fantasy, I would have like done that every month. Like it was crazy. Because he knew a bunch of people on the Fantasy. So like I didn't know anyone. So he went and like we met a ton of people and like did New Year's, and then we did the next month. And we were doing the Eastern itinerary, so we were going to Tortola and St. Thomas. One of them we went to San Juan. So like they have better ports and like you get a little bit more, like you have a little bit more fun. The last 2 months I was on the Dream, which was just kind of like, okay, let's get it over with. Done and back in 3 days. It just depends on who you're going with, I would say. I wouldn't mind going to the Fantasy if I was with somebody.
Did you have to stay in crew cabins when you went on? Yeah. Did you ever get to stay in a guest cabin ever again?
I never stayed in a crew cabin my entire first contract. Every rotation, I was in a guest room. And now every ship except for the Magic, when you go on rotation, you're in a crew room. Especially on the Dream, you're split up. So like you might be going with your friend and you're like expecting, oh, we'll just put us in a room. They like always split you up on the Dream, which is kind of annoying because you're with somebody that's not from your department. Like you don't know who it is. But the Fantasy, they keep you together. There's like one crew room that's like designated as like the Island Guard room. So you know exactly where it is every time you go on the ship. You just
nice.
Go, boom, done. But the Dream, because I think it's just because there's so many more people switching around on the Dream. There's like they always split you up, which is annoying.
When Heath embarked, when we were all together, or you got a guest room with the other 2 guards that were going to Castaway. Yeah. And so we would hang out in there because it was like so bougie and fun.
And then my first contract, every time I got on the ship, I was in a guest room on the Dream for rotation and on the Fantasy. I went on 2 rotations on the Fantasy my first contract as well. And we had a balcony room for one of them.
No.
It was on like deck. It was like on deck 8. It was ridiculous. Like we'd come out of there, you know, like in full uniform, and people were like, "What?"
Heck yeah. That's
Or we'd
so
come back
funny.
at like 3 o'clock in the morning, like tiptoeing. Like,
You're so lucky. That's amazing. See, that's why I just think like island life would be so much better. That's just so fun. You get the best of both worlds. You get to have so much fun.
Small victories.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
that.
totally.
Yeah.
Really big question. Do you have internet access?
Yeah, again, another perk. We have free Wi-Fi, which is okay. It's not great, but then you can also get a SIM card that works in the Bahamas. So that's like $50 for, I think, 15 gigs. So a lot of people just did that because they had like 4G on the islands. So people would kind of use both, and it works in your room and everything, and you don't have to pay, except for if you want to buy one. You don't have to though.
So then did it suck when you were on the ship? Because you were like,
yeah, because you're used to
Wi-Fi
like watching Netflix, whatever, like, so you'd go on the ship and you'd kind of be like, okay, I have to like entertain myself. So it was good because it got you, I liked it because it did get you off your phone. And now on the ship, they have the free texting. So you can use WhatsApp and iMessage.
oh, it's so nice.
So it's so much easier to keep in touch with your friends on the ship. Like if you're all meeting up to do something, it's so much easier. You're not having to like call their crew cabin or like remember their number. You're able to use WhatsApp and iMessage for free, which is nice.
Kind of makes me sad though, because I remember getting on the ship and thinking it was like so fun because you'd either have to like go to your friend's room and like knock to ask them to hang out or like call their cabin number.
Yeah, it was very like kind of old schooly,
Yeah.
You weren't able to just like message them. You'd have to like look at your schedule and like find out what room they're in and stuff.
All right, guys, that was it for part 2. Make sure you come back next Tuesday for the last and final installment, part 3 of Castaway Q&A. I'm so excited to show you guys the last and final video in the Q&A series, and this has been amazing. We are so lucky again to have this interview. Thank you, Heath, and I hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you on Friday. Bye.